Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. Los Angeles making its pitch in Rio. Mayor Eric Garcetti is in Brazil touting the readiness of the City of Angels to host the Olympics. LA competing with Rome, Paris, and Budapest for the 2024 Summer Games. The other potential host cities are also there. Garcetti claims Los Angeles would deliver a risk-free games because it only needs to build one facility for whitewater kayaking, so its selection wouldn't lead to ongoing concerns about construction. One other facility would help the bid is already in the works, a privately funded $2 billion stadium for the Los Angeles Rams set to open in 2019. With infrastructure, political, and economic scares pre-Rio, the IOC may be looking for a been-there-done-that Olympics that provides minimal risk and maximum revenue. Coupled with the newfound positive relationship between the IOC and USOC that was evident when I spent time with Olympic President Bach, it may be, in fact, LA's time again. The U.S. women's gymnastics team and Michael Phelps among those living up to the hype so far at the Games. Serena Williams, not so much. The top women's tennis player won't be taking home a medal. She was eliminated in singles play in the third round by Ukraine's Elena Svitolina. She and her sister Venus lost in doubles play too, though they've won gold in previous Olympics. Her focus now shifts to the final major of the year. The U.S. Open begins later this month. The tournament features a new $150 million retractable roof on the main Arthur Ashe Stadium. The roof increases television and attendance stability, regardless of late summer New York showers. We will cover more of that later this month. Back to the Olympics, my conversation prior to the start of the Games with head of the U.S. Olympic Committee, Scott Blackman. As the United States head businessman for the entire U.S. Olympic effort, you included a USA Team registry, a crowdfunding website where fans could make individual gifts to support U.S. athletes. From a financial support perspective, are our athletes ready for the Games?
They are absolutely ready. You know, we wish we could support more of them, Rick. We probably support, about 1,500 athletes, which means there are some athletes who are competing for a spot on the Olympic team who we can't support. And our goal ultimately is to be able to give everybody the kind of support that they need to be on the podium. We're competing against nations that invest in sport, invest in the Olympics on a pretty massive scale. China, Russia, some others. We are totally privately funded. We're fortunate to have the support of many, many Americans, both sponsor companies and our donors. And so we feel great about the support that we can provide to our athletes, but it sure be nice if we could support more of them.
Well, and you do move entrepreneurial mountains, and I know your frustration. How do you basically feel waking up every day and competing against those publicly funded state programs that dominate the global landscape that you were just mentioning?
We have the greatest group of athletes on the planet. So we've won the medal count in every Summer Games since Atlanta. We've won the medal count in the Winter Games. So we're very, very fortunate that we've got, good systems, good community systems here. Our collegiate system, the support that we get from NCAA institutions is unbelievable. It is a little daunting to compete against the kinds of investments that other nations are making, but it's hard to complain about our structure because our athletes are doing great and they're winning the medal count.
Well, let's go across those 40-some-odd national governing bodies. So how do you balance the sports that really, 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 really depend on you and those NGBs, fencing, judos, many of the lesser-known sports, against the professionally dominated programs, tennis, golf, soccer, basketball, and the like?
So we have limited resources, as I said earlier. We can't support everybody. What we try to do is make sure that the dollars that we do invest really have an impact on our ability to win medals at the Olympic and the Paralympic Games. So when we look at a sport like basketball, there's not a lot that we can do to make our men's basketball team better. It's a fantastic team. They're well coached. They're well trained. There are other sports where we've got an opportunity to win a medal. So you look at a sport like swimming or rowing or gymnastics where they don't have that same level of infrastructure and training that a men's basketball might. So the way we look at it is where can our dollars have the greatest impact? As you probably know, we don't invest in sports where we really don't have a reasonable opportunity to medal. So that's always the analysis that Alan Ashley, who leads our sport group, undertakes to determine how we allocate our resources.
It's an ongoing and interesting mixture of financial and political acumen. You know, a year ago in that interview we talked about with Thomas Bach, he praised his corruption reform issues and that, in his words, all instruments are in place to prevent corruption. He was referring to the bid process and also protecting clean athletes. Talk about the recent Russian ruling and also the Olympic movement itself. Is it dealing adequately with leveling the playing field between countries with various anti-doping policies?
You know, you mentioned corruption and bidding and doping, and I'll say on the bidding front, the rules that they put in place are really working. This is a much more efficient process. I think cities are spending less money than they ever have before. You know, we have an incredibly strong bid that's in play from Los Angeles. So, you know, I would give the IOC extremely high marks on kind of managing the bid function. You know, on the doping side, they found themselves in a no-win position. You know, 2 weeks out from the games, they didn't really have an option that would have kept everybody happy. I understand where they are coming from when they express concern about individual justice. And if you ban the whole Russian team, there are going to be some athletes, some clean athletes who, you know, I think are unfairly treated as a part of that. On the other hand, we have all the clean athletes around the world who are going to have to line up against, you know, the Russian team. And I think we also have to think about individual justice from their perspective. So I think the important thing is that we need to fix this system going forward. We need a truly independent system. We can't have all the overlap that we currently have between WADA on the one hand and the IOC and the international federations on the other hand. And I think the IOC is genuinely committed to changing the system, to try to make it better and to try to make it more unlikely that this could happen again, because this is, you know, this is unfair. It's an embarrassment, and it's frankly something that's threatening to the very essence of the Olympic movement. So we really have to focus our attention on it immediately after Rio.
Well, and you're right in the sense that Thomas Bach, remember, preached empowerment and transparency, and under these circumstances, he's doing the best he can on that and hopefully able to move forward immediately after the games, as you said. Baseball and football, not presently at the Olympics. The Olympics, as the NBA has proved, is a great platform for global expansion. We all know that. Can you look down the road and see baseball or football as part of future Olympic Games?
You know, I think one of the great things about the changes that were made to the program of the Olympic Games, meaning the sports that get to be competed there, is that the organizing committees going forward are going to have more influence over that. So, you know, as you look at, you know, what Tokyo might do or what the winner of the 2024 race might do, I think there is an opportunity for sports as long as they are universal, meaning, you know, practiced in many, many nations. I think the challenge that American football would have is that it's just not being played in enough nations. It's not going to get as much traction as something like baseball would get. So I'd say, you know, baseball, high likelihood, women's softball, probably even higher likelihood, football, probably not so much at this point in time.
Perfect segue into the winner of the 2024 race. Thank you for doing that. Last year, Thomas Bach commented on the improved attitude and relationship between his organization and yours, meaning you. 2024 Boston fallout is a distant dream, but L.A. seems poised to grab these games when the selection is made next year. How do you feel about their process and the prospects for success?
They have an amazing bid, and it's amazing in a couple of different respects. One, they only have to build one new permanent venue. So as you look at all the sports that are competed in the Olympic Games, they're going to have venues that are either temporary or that are already in place. And so from an expense perspective, it's going to be one of the most, you know, economically efficient games ever. The other thing that is very, very strong about their bid is that, you know, one of the things that's important to the IOC is connecting the Olympic movement and the Olympic Games to youth. And if you look at the assets that we have in California, whether it's Silicon Valley or some of the companies, the tech companies down in Los Angeles, I think, you know, America's bid is uniquely positioned to help the IOC make that connection to youth, to make the Olympic Games relevant to the public. And so I'm excited about it for both of those reasons. We've also got great leaders, Casey Wasserman, Gene Sykes, Mayor Eric Garcetti, just doing a phenomenal job leading that bid, and it's got community support like nothing we've ever seen before. I think 87 or 88% public support, and remember in Boston, I think we got down below 40% at one point. So we couldn't be happier about that, Rick.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show, Alex Cohen. Associate producer, Bethel Habte. Assistance provided by Tanner Simpkins and Carlos Waddick. And the executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.